I grew up in a very Orthodox Catholic family, and the tradition we came from was Irish Catholicism. I didn't fit at all. Couldn't make friends, just felt so different. Even back then was very unclear about who I was, what my gender was. I saw an ad for the army, so I went down to St Kilda recruiting office the day I turned 17, actually. I thought, well, a uniform will get me there. Everyone seems to love the soldiers and the sailors, so, maybe I'll fit into that quite well. At Watsonia, we were put on a bus and sent off to Kapuka, which was the Army's 1RTB, First Recruit Training Battalion. And we got off the bus, and the first thing that happened when we got off the bus was this booming voice from somebody wearing a white lanyard, who we came to know as Bombardier Floyd, commanded at the top of his voice, "Get in line, you useless bunch of children." Oh, this is the army, right? It was at that point that we were then marched to the Q store and got our first pair of jungle greens. I was excited. Yeah, I think we all were excited. This was something quite different. This is something that people at home weren't doing and knew nothing of. Each company had 3 platoons. 10 platoon of D Company came under mortar fire. When that finished, I was called forward as a company medic because there'd been casualties. And there were a few, but the most serious of which that was evident was actually a young bloke by the name of Les Farron. And Les was found laying with basically his whole groin area destroyed, legs almost separated. And Les regained consciousness just for a few moments, in time to say 2 things. "Don't let me die, Doc, don't let me die." And then he was silent, and then he just called for Mum, as so often happens, and died right here in these arms. The first Victorian national serviceman ever killed in action. And then somebody's yelling for me, "Doc, you gotta come over here, you gotta come over here, we've got Danny." Nobody had seen where Danny Coop, who was a corporal section commander. And Danny, by contrast to Les, was laying, and he'd been undetected for 10 or 15 minutes, quietly, with no apparent wounds evident, except a small shrapnel entry wound above his and behind his eye. That was it. He was out, dead, gone. Danny would not have known what happened. I mean, I knew in my head, I knew when we left Australia that we were at war, but it was kind of, so what? Suddenly it's real. The following morning, my unit was to accompany the remnant D Company 6 RAR back into the battlefield. Initially to assist with the body count. Body counts were everything in Vietnam. That's how success was measured, by how many bodies there were. I mean, bizarre, isn't it? But that's how it was. So my job as medic was to accompany the body search party, confirm dead, And so I was able to count the 245 remains of young enemy soldiers on the ground, basically in traditional, you'd think this was trench warfare. They were in their lines. The whole rubber plantation was destroyed, and it was just this mass of destruction on the ground. There were bodies. I actually had to put limbs together to make up bodies, you know, in some cases. On the one hand, there's Les Farron and Danny Coop and, you know, dead on the ground from a targeted mortar attack, 10th of June. 18th of August, there's 245 of them and 18 of ours dead in a major set-piece battle. How can one bunch of young men totally destroy another bunch of young men without actually knowing why we're doing it? Robert Frost, the American poet, mending wall, and the line that goes, before I build a wall, I'd want to know what I was walling in and walling out. Now when I look at the uniform, I kind of find myself going, before I put on a uniform, I'd want to know what I was hiding inside and from what outside was I hiding. But the thing about uniforms is that they hide more than they reveal. They hide the inner man and woman and make us all look the same. And we're just not the same.